Hi, my name is Tania Andino, and I'll be presenting my project called Dreams in Transition. This project dives into the research question: how can contemporary communication embody the struggles of young cross-cultural female identities? The main focus of this project is to bring to the spotlight the concerns of young immigrant girls, particularly from the Global South. The discussion throughout this project starts with having extensive workshops with a group of young cross-cultural women living in Norway. The workshops adopted the feminist methodology of meaning-making. For instance, a meaningful object represented by scarves as a form of practice in creating culture. This approach is fluid between the boundaries of art and design. The feminist methodology focuses on gender. The gender in this context is conceptualized beyond pure theoretical interest and more towards epistemology and the legitimation of ignored knowledge. The feminist epistemological foundation, or in this case, meaning-making, are based on the premise of being a woman, and how the woman's experiences and the interpretation of realities, which are often disputed, build foundation for feminism, feminist knowledge, and meaning-making. This argument supports that feminist research seeks a political and social change, and, above all, the motto of feminist liberation movement: the personal is political, which underlines the associations between personal experiences and the broader social and political structures. This project was born from the intermixtures of ideas that create an instability and mutability of identities that are always unfinished and always being remade, with traces of gender, class, and race. The imagery created encapsulates all these aspects. The hybridity between tradition and modern holds a cultural change and exchange crucial to the post-colonial viewpoint. What is significant about this project is that scarves embody a social history of the daily use of textiles, containing stains and sweat of hard-working life. The softness and delicacy of the fabric are strongly related to the human vulnerability, and a transitory relationship that has created a colossal industry that has blinded many in this complex web of cultural exchanges. The materiality of the scars prevails with the human imprint. The sense awakes, and the object then becomes a symbol of migrant labor. Therefore, we are all complicit and witnesses of countless invisible stories of the textiles exchanges. The hands play an essential role in understanding the project because they tell stories, desire, and moods. The hands reveal us. The more the hand is involved in the process, the greater the work. At the same time, it is impossible not to be critical of my own work. How would this project be disseminated to the world? The pessimistic thoughts were circling similarities with Palestinian scarves or the Che Guevara t-shirts, triggering capitalistic consumption mind, which is ironic in itself. It is easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. At the same time, I'm proud of the other side of this project. The experience with the girls has left a positive impact on them, building a type of trust and addressing issues that aren't easy to talk about, allowing them to express themselves freely, reflecting, and see new ways of communicating a message. That is the approach I took using modern technology, including AR available in social media. The role of emojis in this project is to visualize the understanding of their world as a universal expression. It leads to the knowledge of how identities are a metaphoric construction. The popular culture that influenced the girls emphasizes everyday life subjects and the importance of knowing oneself. Therefore, the fascination of emojis is the core of the identity of young generations. These are connected by the unconscious desire brought by media culture and advertising, such as in brands, movies, music, video games, etc. It implies that the young generation creates new meanings that produce new possibilities for new forms of identity.
Hello, my name is Rika Nakayama. I'm a mixed media animator and a recent graduate of Rhode Island School of Design. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the Transposition as Artistic Practice Symposium. It is great to be able to share my work here. Cave Maze is an interactive virtual reality world created for Matthias Legno's augmented design course at the Rhode Island School of Design. The course was designed to explore creative possibilities of virtual reality and its unique design strategies as we apply to space design, drawing, and nonlinear storytelling. We designed, prototyped, tested, and created in virtual reality using VR-based software such as Unity, Tiltbrush, Oculus Quill, and Masterpiece VR. Since the course was held in fall 2020 during the pandemic, the class met remotely on a social VR platform called VR Chat. Therefore, this world is created for a VR chat platform which is accessible with a VR headset or desktop PC. Users who visit this world arrive on the surface of a barren planet. As they walk, they find particles coming out from a hole on the ground. Once stepping in, they fall into the bottom of the underground cave and discover a fantastical flora. There is a 3D map of this world, with arrows indicating a route back to the surface. There are also elevators hidden throughout the cave, and this instruction is visible from the spot visitors land from the hole. The visitors are then free to explore this world and socialize with other visitors. Here is the interactive elevator created with Unity. When users step on it, it floats and takes them to the next level. Each component of this world is created with different VR-based tools. The geography is modeled in Masterpiece VR. The flora plants are illustrated in Oculus Quill, and animated elements are drawn in Tiltbrush. Each software has distinct brushes, colors, and lighting quality, so the components created in each software result in slightly different aesthetics. These components are then assembled in Unity and given an interactive function. Here is an example of the making process in Oculus Quill. The drawing tools are similar to those of Photoshop, which gives artists the freedom to draw in a VR space intuitively. The ground model is exported from Masterpiece VR and imported into Oculus Quill. Because Masterpiece VR is a software more specialized for modeling, it allows more solid feeling in contrast to the translucent quality of the Oculus Quill drawings. In VR space, I can change objects to any scale, and I can duplicate the drawings and change slight details to create foliage. It is a much faster process than modeling a 3D world with a mouse on a 2D computer screen. Drawing in a VR space typically results in much more organic shapes due to this unique process of drawing. This project was synchronous with my degree project film Panspermia, which depicts a long-term cycle of a fictional flora on an alien planet. Both projects attempt to depict a torpid form of life and static energy inside a seemingly barren, isolated world. A VR world provides us a vast space and a sense of physical presence. Thus, I believe that virtual reality is a more awe-inducing platform than any other media. I wanted to emphasize this quality and provide a meditative experience to the visitors who explore this world. This project proved to me that VR illustration tools provide artists unprecedented freedom of designing a space. It provides new forms of physical experience and social interactions by allowing people to meet beyond their geographical locations and to interact beyond physical limitations. It was great to draw in a vast 3D canvas, to virtually interact with classmates in the worlds we created, and to experience a new form of socialization during the time of pandemic. Thank you very much for listening.
My name is Amy Vandenhoeven, and my thesis project is called Reimagining Pain Communication. And my thesis question was, how can design improve the way we communicate pain? And I wanted to ask this question because pain, especially chronic pain, is so complex and unique to each person, which can make it really, really difficult to communicate with words alone. After an in-depth collaborative design process, the outcome of my design research is a reimagined toolkit to help people in pain communicate their stories. The toolkit holds various co-created objects that represent different pains and needs, creating a visual and tactile language for pain. For this presentation, I will be focusing on the key words of the symposium: space, embodiment, and materiality, which have played an important part in this project. Space is so important to this toolkit because the placement of the objects helps tell a person's story of living with pain. Embodiment. Each object embodies a different feeling of pain, which is expressed in its materiality and form. With this toolkit, I believe that it can help shift the way we communicate pain towards a direction that can embrace the complexities involved in each person's story, which will also help reveal pathways that can help a person in pain. And for the design process, it was important to me to make it as collaborative as possible. So to do this, I created the Co-Pain Lab, which brought together perspectives from people inside and outside of medicine. And this was done through holding various interviews and workshops. And so together we were able to reimagine what a preferable approach to pain communication could look like. To create the objects in the toolkit, I carried out workshops where I asked people to mold their pain in clay. The unique expressions of pain reflected in the objects and the powerful stories that people shared became inspiration for the form and tactile experience of each pain object. The workshops not only were a way to create the object language, they were also experiences that brought people together to communicate their pain. Using clay allowed people to make formations that embodied their experience of living with pain. It was amazing to see how people expressed their pain in different ways. Some people pinched and stabbed the clay because that is what their pain feels like, while others created monster-like figures. While observing the similarities and differences between the objects, I asked the question, how can I take an object that is so detailed and unique to each person and create a new object language for others to use? I wanted to embrace the details, but I also wanted to keep the objects open enough for others to relate to. By taking the common forms and experimenting with different materials to reflect these feelings of pain, it led to the creation of the objects within the toolkit. The final outcome of the toolkit included both the design of the box with objects that represent different pains and needs, and a circular platform in which the person in pain can place and move these objects. The objects allow a person to see their pain first, helping them to translate the image of their pain into words. Around the platform are 3 rings, which represent past, present, and future. This gives the opportunity for people to communicate their pain across time and to look towards what can help them in the future. It gives both the sender and receiver a new perspective of one's pain, which can lead to discovering new ways to help a person. The way I envision the future is to continue to challenge how and where we communicate pain through reimagining the clinic. And I also want to continue to collaborate with people in pain to expand this visual and tactile language for pain. And it's also really important to me that I continue to use design to improve the lives of those in pain and to really make sure that more people are seen and heard.
Hi there, my name is Izzy Hemmensberger, and I'm a third-year student at the Brown, Rhode Island School of Design dual degree program in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm studying illustration at RISD and computer science at Brown. Today, I'm going to be showing you a video that I made in one of my classes at RISD called The Chrysalis. Without further ado, let's take a look at it.
By now, most of us are familiar with the typical life cycle of butterflies and moths, right? We go from egg to caterpillar to chrysalis to butterfly. It's that simple. But have you ever stopped to think about what's really going on inside of that chrysalis? You might picture a sort of teenage butterfly, a caterpillar sprouting wings in there. But if you were to cut one open, you would find just goo. Goopy, gooey, liquefied caterpillar. Picture snot. And then imagine a whole butterfly emerging from that snot. The caterpillar's organs, tissues, everything breaks down completely and becomes a soup of cells. Delicious. For a long time, humans equated this process with death. The chrysalis was a coffin from which new life, the butterfly, emerged, like a phoenix from the ash. But studies show that butterflies remember things that happened to them when they were caterpillars. Even though their brains are liquefied and dispersed for a few weeks in between, somehow those neurons find their way back together. So that intermediate state, it isn't really like being dead, but it isn't really like being alive either. It's its own state, a unique state necessary for the metamorphosis that butterflies and moths undergo. Can you imagine if humans went through something similar, being liquefied like that? How would it feel, and what would we turn into?
Alright, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed that video. Now I'm going to move into talking about some of my inspirations and thoughts and takeaways from working on that project. So my main inspiration comes from science videos as a whole, right? I remember in elementary school, we would put on Bill Nye the Science Guy, and all the kids would get super hyped up about science all of a sudden. I was also super into watching space documentaries. Into This Universe with Stephen Hawking and the Cosmos reboot with Neil deGrasse Tyson were some of my favorites. But these are longer form. I think nowadays, a lot of people want to just sit down and watch like 5 to 10 minutes to learn things. They sort of just want to browse and see them on the internet. And YouTube science videos are a great place for them to find that and to reach a really wide audience. So some great examples of channels that I think do a great job at having great visuals to go along with their scientific explanations are ASAP Science and Kirksgazat. You can see here Kirksgazat has these beautiful colors that I took a lot of inspiration from, and ASAP Science does this sort of whiteboard animation style that is, I think, super accessible and friendly and fun to look at. Some other channels that I've taken inspiration from are Crash Course and SciShow, both fantastic learning channels that I remember in high school my teachers would sometimes put on their YouTube videos for us to watch. And also PBS Eons and PBS Spacetime. They have a couple other channels too, but I think it's really interesting that PBS has switched over from broadcast television to also engaging with stuff on YouTube and on the internet to access that wide array of people who are interested in science. Another really important inspiration for my video was this Radiolab podcast that was the whole inspiration for making this. Goo and You is a 20-minute part of a larger episode that my dad recommended I listen to, and oh my gosh, I thought it was so interesting. I just had to turn it into a video because I really wanted to sort of take a spin on it. It was just creating so many interesting visuals in my brain, and I love science podcasts. They're a great way to access people and great way to enjoy content about science. But I think that the video is a shorter and easier, more accessible way to spread that content right now in our digital age. In terms of my process for making this video, I did the animations in Adobe Animate, and I used looping to do these little wiggly animations. I hand drew all of the frames. There is a little bit of computer looping to sort of help my job along, but it was a really fun program to work with to sort of get that colorful cut paper style. And then in terms of my process for making the video, I started with the script, I visualized different chunks of it, and then I worked on tying all those transitions together and making one big continuous thing, which I think ties into the whole idea of metamorphosis and the idea that the chrysalis, the caterpillar, and the butterfly are all this one continuous organism. And at the very end, I added the voiceover on top of the animations at the very end. In terms of what I can take away from this project, one of the coolest things was seeing how much positive feedback I got from this video on social media, and this video spread all over Instagram and Facebook in my circles. My classmates were reposting it and sharing it around. My family members, it even got around back to my high school. I was asked permission for them to show it in some middle school classrooms, and I'm really glad that my work is getting out there, but I'm also really glad that my work was able to educate people and be interesting for so many different audiences. And then in terms of whether this is a science or art video, I definitely think this is both and that they exist together. And all science and art videos, I think, are a form of art. And then, yeah, I would love to work on future projects like this. I'm already looking out for a new podcast that I could go with. But anyway, thank you. Have a great day.
My name is Şevval Konyalı. I'm a young artist living and working in Istanbul. In 2021, I graduated from the Media and Visual Arts Department of Koç University. Utilizing a wide range of media, I produce works such as installations, photographs, videos, illustrations, as well as on paper and collages. Personal and historical narratives play a major role in my work, and I generally put emphasis on topics such as the environment-memory relationship and the originality and authenticity of the work of art. Ephemera, discovered objects, scribbles, and written expressions are among the tools I frequently use. For the last 3 years, I've been working on a large-scale installation that I've been preparing by archiving the favorite objects which children with autism are obsessed with. With my installation reel, I was selected a winner of the 39th Akbank Contemporary Artist Competition, and my work was chosen by the jury to be included in the September 2021 exhibition. Regarding green, even though we've been destroying it for a long time, we still have a home, a planet where we can take shelter in the world of climate change and COVID-19. And we are still in the same boat, just like Noah's Ark. Re raises questions about re-existence in the extinction existence cycle and questions the new life that begins with death and the escape from water through ship origami's, made from the pages of an animal book published by Hachette in 1970. The many individual ship origami's are displayed in a specially organized, yet slightly chaotic manner in an antique enamel baby bathtub.
Senin zamanında değil, benim zamanımda da değil. İnsanın hayvanlıktan çıkmaya başladığı zamanda, hayvanların zamanının sona ermeye başladığı zamanda, yalnız, yaşlı ve taze dünyanın insan eliyle değişmeye başladığı zamanda, insanın içindeki delik açılmaya başladığı zamanda, yalnız, yaşlı ve hala taze dünyada. Bir varmış, bir yokmuş. Bir insan tek başına oturuyormuş. Derin bir üzüntü içindeymiş. Bütün hayvanlar ona yaklaşıp şöyle demişler: "Seni böyle hüzünlü görmek hoşumuza gitmiyor. Dilediğini iste bizden ve sana verelim." İnsan, "İyi görebilmek istiyorum," demiş. Akbaba, "Benim yeteneğimi alabilirsin," demiş. İnsan, "Güçlü olmak istiyorum," demiş. Pars da şunu söylemiş: "Benim gibi güçlü olacaksın." Daha sonra insan, "Dünyanın gizemlerini öğrenmek istiyorum," demiş. Yılan, "Sana onları gösterebileceğim," demiş. Diğer hayvanlarla da bu böyle devam etmiş. İnsan onların verebileceği bütün hediyelere sahip olduktan sonra oradan ayrılmış. Ondan sonra baykuş öbür hayvanlara şunu söylemiş: "İnsan artık birçok şey biliyor ve birçok şey yapabilecek kabiliyette." Geyik şöyle konuşmuş: "İnsan ihtiyaç duyduğu her şeye sahip, şimdi hüzün son bulacaktır." Baykuş, "Hayır," demiş. İnsanın içinde bir delik gördü. Asla doyuramayacağı bir açlık kadar derin. Bu onu hüzünlü olmaya ve istemeye yöneltmekte. Almaya ve toplamaya devam edecektir. Günün birinde dünya şunu söyleyene kadar: "Tükendim. Sana verebilecek bir şeyim kalmadı." Hello. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity. My name is Betül Gayedic. I'm an MA student in Erasmus Mundus International Master in Children's Literature, Media and Culture program. I was graduated from the Department of Design, Technology and Society at Koç University. During my first MA degree at Koç, Professor Veri Alaca and I worked on picture books and comic books about cultural heritage sites. Today I would like to introduce you to a graphic novel from Turkey that narrates a story about an archaeological site with ecological concerns. After studying architecture, Fırat Yaşa worked in many comic magazines as a colorist and created graphic novels. His works utilize historical settings as backdrops for the stories. In his first graphic novel, he presented the Galata neighborhood in 19th century of Istanbul by focusing on Industrial Revolution. In his second book, Nun the Hunter, Yaşa illustrated a story about the Neolithic Revolution, the transition from hunter-gatherer lifestyle to establishment of first settlements, and of course the effects of this transition on gender roles in society. This story is set in one of the famous archaeological and prehistorical sites in Turkey, which is Çatalhöyük. In his recent graphic novel Tepe, he focuses on another site, which is named Göbektepe. Göbektepe locates in Şanlıurfa. the southeast of Turkey. It is a construction of a circular design stone monument and has been dated to around 9600 BC. So far, it is the earliest example of these megalithic structures. The entire area contains 20 circular enclosures, but only 6 of them have been excavated today. These circular enclosures were created via T-shaped pillars assemblages. Although theories and opinions on the functions of Göbekli Tepe site varies, it is often announced as the world's oldest sanctuary. In this period, as humans started to domesticate animals and cultivate plants, humans' relationship with non-human subjects have been altered. In our analysis, we question in what ways the graphic novel Tepe excavates the birth of anthropocentrism and promotes ecological thinking. From the beginning, the book shows reflections of animals and humans on their relationship. The human character Rod says, "We have become more cunning than you. We burned your caves to hunt you down." Fogg says, "Men are scary." Rod, "Not all of us. Don't you trust me?" Fogg, "Nothing is trustworthy, especially men. I have learned whom you all are." Rod, "Me too." Fogg, "Do you see the stars? I am there too. Look at that." Rod, "Yes, I see." During the story From the Sky to Earth, the environment is not static. Göbekli Tepe, especially as a part of this environment, plays a key role in the story. T-shaped pillars, which are often examined as a representation of man, depict the fauna of the region. However, what these animal reliefs actually symbolize remain a mystery. In the story, the human character Rat tries to help move a deer to save her mother from a tribe. This tribe sacrifices animals for their deity. The graphic novel interprets the area as a ritual center for animal sacrifice. In the illustrations, Tepe doesn't use animal characters in an allegorical way. It studies how to depict animals' emotions in different ways by minimizing the anthropomorphic qualities and focusing mainly on the animals' story worlds. Timothy Morton suggests that considering only environmental problems is not a sufficient practice to understand the root of climate change. We should question all kinds of inequalities in society. Tepe tries to find an answer to what the power dynamics among humans looks like while building these structures. While this architecture has been utilized to represent a hierarchical power relationship in the society, Tepe also questions the birth of graphic and visual arts. Why did the artists need to reflect on themselves while drawing, and how did this need connect to the human-animal relationship? This questioning is visually apparent in illustrations. The artist seeks aesthetic responses to ecological issues. He embeds not only figures from the pillars into the illustrations, but also blends matchstick man figures with the others. To present man-animal relationship throughout the centuries, he refers to the recent reasons for ecological problems via matchstick man drawings. Therefore, by avoiding a didactic tone with this graphic novel, the artist offers us various methods to depict the complex picture of humans' role in ecological problems. Finally, you are all welcome to visit Journal of Graphic Novels and Comics to find more information about this book in our article. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Hi everyone, my name is Monica Morales and I'm a recent graduate student from the Master Program in Design at KMD in the University of Bergen. Today I'll be talking a little bit about my master thesis project, which is called Deconstructing the Picture Book. Essentially, the final piece of this project was a picture book that I wrote and I illustrated myself. But my research revolved around more than just the process of creating the book, and it also dealt with themes of multimodality, of materiality, and interactivity. So with this project, I aimed to explore, but also to question what a picture book is, and also to try to find new ways in which the user or the reader can interact more with the physical object. I wanted to find new design approaches and try to drift away from the traditional route of using pages and paper, and also what is more common now, digital spaces for books. And I wanted to make something that was relatively different and new, but also completely analog. And throughout the process, something that I kept thinking about a lot was that I wanted to make reading this book more of an experience for the person. And I kept thinking how in theater, one has to play out the narrative. So moving forward with that analogy, I decided that I would use the physical object, the book, to resemble a stage. And the book has two frames in which the cards live in, and then the user or the child reader have the role of the storyteller, either telling the story just to themselves or also sharing it with an audience. So essentially the book works and is composed of a series of individual cards that when they are organized and arranged together, they create this whole book. And once the reader is going through the story and pulling out the cards and reading the narrative, they're able to inspect the cards individually and maybe even pass them around if they are reading it or sharing it with an audience. But what is more special about this design alternative is that once the story is done and the cards are essentially liberated from the book, the children are able to grab these pieces individually. So the cards become again individual elements rather than part of a whole. And by grabbing, an individual illustration, the child can create new stories and maybe go with different paths of narratives. So it really opens more room for interpretation and makes it less fixed. And one last point I want to talk about is that I was also consciously thinking about what kind of space the book would take up. And I don't mean literally in a bookshelf, but what kind of spatial environment can reading this book provide to a child, and how can it manifest just through the experience of using it. And I still do question if, reading this book differently from all other picture books can immerse the child more into the storyline. So as you will see in the video, the way of reading this book is a little bit different from the traditional picture book, but I hope you do enjoy my interpretation of what a picture book is.
I would like to present Nisha Abraham to share her experiences with the presentation entitled The Animator Who Bakes. Nisha is a design professional, illustrator, and animator with a focus on claymation. Her love for clay modeling and sculpting led her to experiment with the edible plasticine like fondant, creating an art form which has taken on a life of its own, bridging a space between edible art and personalized confectionery, between creation and connection.
Hi, I'm Nisha Abraham. I'm from Bangalore, India, and I am a cake artist. That's this new title which I have for myself. I studied design at NID in Ahmedabad, and in fact Nina was my teacher. She was my guru who taught me claymation and stop motion animation. When I moved back to Bangalore, I got married and I had children, and after that I didn't make films anymore, but I feel there was always something of this model animation bug which was in me. So I started making little sugar figures for my children's cakes, for their birthday cakes, and I would do stop motion and claymation workshops with children. I then started getting people were interested in knowing whether I could make figures for them, for their children, for their cakes, and I was like, why not? So the way it works is that usually my client or customer calls me, and when we're talking about the cake, they go through details about the person who they're ordering the cake for. It's usually very personal, so there'll be a story behind everything that you see on the cake. This, for example, is one of my favorite experiences. Neha, who lives in Singapore, had a baby, and her parents live in India and they couldn't go visit. So she asked me to make a cake for her father's 60th birthday and depict her daughter, who her father had never seen, sitting on his lap. And here's the final cake that I made. That's the grandfather with his signature hat. And all the little details that I enjoy, picking off the photographs that I get. And I think it was a wonderful surprise. Oh yeah, this one, Viraj's dinosaur. So this is a 5-year-old boy, Viraj, and his mother wanted the cake because this little boy illustrates his own dinosaurs. So I took off on that, and this is the first sketch that I came up with, which had these multicolored dinosaur, but apparently it wasn't scary enough and looked too friendly, and so I came up with this one, and this met his approval. And yeah, this is the cake that I came up with. I think it hit the brief and the little boy was scared enough about it. Yeah, so I try and put in details, like in this case I'm trying to create the finer details on a favorite sari. And then I start working on the fondant itself. I treat it like I used to treat my plasticine, only thing fondant hardens. So you have to work quite fast with it. You can't just keep reworking it. So it's good fun. I enjoy this process. And I keep learning as I'm doing it. So I'm not sure what it's going to be like when I start, but end result's pretty good. Actually, when lockdown began, I thought, obviously birthday parties are not going to happen and people are not going to order this stuff anymore. But in fact, there were so many people who just could not be there with their loved ones, and my cakes and what was on them, the illustrative quality of it, they could actually show the person who the cake was for how much they knew them and how much they missed them. And so those things really, I think, became more important during the lockdown. So how do you let go of these sculptures which you spend so many hours on, sometimes days and nights? How do you give them to somebody to eat up? I mean, they're not even there afterwards. It's not like somebody owns that piece of art and you can have it forever. Well, it is made of sugar and it's for people to celebrate on top of a cake. So it's just something that is part of this kind of art form, I guess. I mean, look at Indian art in itself, like the rangolis you have on the floor outside your house. Such intricate patterns that are drawn and colored, and it's made out of powdered color, and the next day they just sweep it and it's gone. And the idols, the Ganesha and Durga idols that are immersed after puja time, beautifully created out of mud, and then it goes back into mud. So I take a lot of pictures so that I have it in my memory and everybody's memory, but then you just let go.
We would like to thank to our speakers and the participants for being a part of the second symposium of the Illuminating the Non-Representable project. Our focus was on the materiality, space, and embodiment that shed light on the transformative aspects of illustration in communication and our relations with the other. Various presentations raised issues in relation to our physical performances in space, with connections to the non-represented resulting in their illustration-based resonances. Bringing together age-old traditions and contemporary practices, we hope the second symposium will further and deepen debates on what illustration can pose for artistic research and society at large in connection to challenging issues.